My name is Jeff Tarburton. I'm with Expedient Technology Solutions. Been here close to 8 years, and I'm the senior cybersecurity consultant here. And with me is Josh. He's a cybersecurity engineer as well. And we're going to talk about a couple things today to help keep your business safe. So we are a managed service provider in the area. We specialize in cybersecurity and compliance services, and we also offer cloud hosting and managed backup services. So 6 tips for keeping your business safe. We're going to go over phishing, vulnerabilities, ransomware, MFA, backups, and defense in depth.
This is through our chamber.
So go over phishing at first. Phishing is where someone sends you an email and it's trying to get you to do something that you wouldn't normally do, like give out your username and password or try to tell you to go buy something and provide it to them very quickly. There's often urgency in the request to try to trick you to do it very quickly. And in the emails can be bad links or bad attachments. We see that most cybersecurity incidences start with a phishing attempt or with phishing emails. One of the ways that these types of things can be prevented is to train end users or train your employees to know what to look out for. And there are services that can help prevent phishing attempts, such as email anti-spam, antivirus, and anti-malware services.
So going off of phishing, I want to talk a little bit about a more specific type of phishing email, which is called spear phishing. This is going to be where specific people in the organization are targeted for trying to get access. They're trying to get access into your employees who have more, maybe they're a manager, maybe they're a director, anybody who can have some escalated access. The big key portion of this out of all of the phishing is to just be very aware of like unsolicited emails, anything that's unexpected, calls for urgencies. We see people get emails that are, hey, I'm a manager. They find your name off of LinkedIn and they send it to somebody and they say, hey, can you buy me some gift cards or something? And, send me the codes back to those. And as funny as some of them can seem, they're very real things that definitely happen within organizations that we see very often. And anything from people sending impersonations, trying to say, hey, can you take care of this PO request for me? Can you buy these gift cards for me? I want to do a gift for an employee. Can you send some of this kind of information? Trying to just extract information out of the company to send to somebody who has no business knowing it. Maybe it's a trade secret. Maybe it's something that just isn't public information. So end user training is very important, but all of this stuff cries off of urgency. Sense of urgency is just taking your time to read what is being sent to you, being critical about it, especially if you are somebody who is a business owner, anybody who is a higher up manager within a company that would be an extra big target for this because they're easily spotted out on somewhere like LinkedIn or anything like that.
Yep. And one other thing that I've seen along those lines is they'll have attachments on the email, like Excel files or Word documents, different things like that, where the email is stating, look at this urgently and click here and that kind of thing. And once you do that, then the system can be compromised. So definitely critically analyze the emails that are coming in to make sure there's nothing bad in them. And then going over vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities are in regards to outdated, not supported software, operating systems, and hardware. So in your environment, there's many different things for networking, computers, that kind of thing. If they're outdated, they could have vulnerabilities in relation to them, where those vulnerabilities can be exploited by someone to get into the system, to escalate privileges on the system, to do things they're not supposed to be doing being in there. One way to combat that is to keep patches up to date, patch management, keeping critical software up to date, being informed of notices from your vendors about updates to their products, like line of business applications like Sage, QuickBooks, that kind of thing. Being aware of when those vendors release updates for those products is very important, because more often than not, a security flaw will be fixed in those updates. So keeping things updated is very important. And all these items are things that threat actors can use when trying to take over systems.
So along with what Jeff is saying, in regards to what we see for compromises into businesses, phishing is the #1 way that we see people use as an attack vector to get into those companies. Vulnerabilities are the next biggest option for somebody that is trying to actually like force their way into a company. But the end result of those is going to be, usually in our findings, what we've seen across customers is ransomware. It is extremely popular. It's only getting worse year after year. It is a type of malware virus that comes in, and it's going to encrypt everything that's on the network that it can get access to. And that basically means that it's going to be unrecoverable without a decryption key or basically a password to unlock all of those files. The reason that they're doing this is that they want you to give them some kind of payout for this. And more often than not, most people know somebody that has experienced this in some kind of way. It really is rampant at this point. It used to be that, you get compromised and somebody uses your email to just spam out a bunch of more spam to other users, and or that you download something and you get a virus that just needs to be, wiped off. Now the ransomware is going in and it's encrypting everything. It's making it so that you have to actually pay for them to give you a decryption key, which might or might not even be delivered or even work, because they're not really playing by the rules anyways to begin with. So the most important thing that comes out of this is backups, making sure you have backups to be able to restore. It can happen from vulnerabilities, come from phishing attacks. And we've also seen where a lot of this stuff comes in where people get access, remote access, before they start spreading malware and stuff. They locate where backup servers are, if they can delete those backups. And also with this is extortion. We've seen a lot of companies everywhere just get hit with ransomware, and then it gets published out somewhere from the company or from the attacker to show proof of concept that they have information. We've all seen the news where somebody gets compromised with something and somebody publishes a chunk of that data that becomes a huge data leak, and people are upset about it. But the reality of it is that they're trying to extort more money out of somebody for when they're taking stuff from them, to show that if you do not pay us, this is what's going to happen. Maybe it's a smear campaign, maybe it's just trying to leak information, but regardless, it is not a good scenario either way.
Yeah, for sure. So we've seen it where attackers will be in an environment it could be up to months at a time. It'll start with the phishing campaign. They'll get remote access into an environment. Then they'll look for vulnerabilities and exploits in the environment. And then they'll go into planning their ransomware attack by looking at backups, seeing if they can delete them. What's called exfiltrating data up to their own environment, copying your company's environment off to theirs, and then implementing the ransomware into the environment and stating pay us or else kind of thing. So yeah, definitely something to be aware of. And then next we want to talk about MFA. MFA is multi-factor authentication. What that does is it provides another element to being approved to get onto the system that you're on. So you have a username and password, but then there's a second factor such as biometrics or a passcode that's unique to you, and different things like that. So it provides a second barrier to entry into your systems. So one thing that has recently been started as a tactic from the attackers is what's called two-factor spamming, where they'll get your username and password and then they'll continuously try to log into the system to get you to just approve the authorization request that typically comes to your phone, so that you can just be rid of the annoying pop-ups that are coming in. That's obviously a bad thing, but something to definitely be aware of. And so multi-factor can alert you to the fact that your username and password may have been compromised if you're getting an unsolicited two-factor authorization request that you didn't initiate yourself. So one of the things to be aware of is that the person has an element of security control in their world type of thing. If someone recognizes something that's not right, then they should go to their IT department and say, hey, this is what's happening. It doesn't seem right. What can we do about this kind of thing? Also, you can multi-factor authenticate a number of services like email, computer login, line of business applications, different things like that. And one of the things that is often affected is email, and that can affect internal staff, external customers, and your company's reputation. So definitely something that needs to be looked at. And nowadays, if your company has cybersecurity insurance or has a requirement for it, they are often requiring that you have two-factor authentication on your systems. So definitely something to be aware of.
So just to circle back to what we were talking about with the ransomware stuff, is talking about backups and how at the end of the day, if it boils down to everybody getting past all of your security, somebody still gets in and something does happen, the importance of having good backups, functioning backups. Usually with backups, you want to have what's called a 3-2-1 method, which is 3 different copies of them on 2 different types of media, and one of those copies being offsite. So if the server room has a meltdown, if the building burns down, the reality is that you have data offsite still that you can still use, that is going to be available. You don't want to have that somewhere it's offsite, but you can't get to it ever, or it takes an extended period of time. You want to make sure that you can recover files. You want to make sure that you can recover whole servers. Verifying that you can do recoveries is very important. There is a saying that untested backups means that you have no tested, or you have no backups. So it is very important to verify that business critical systems are recoverable, and that in the event of something happening that you would be able to fail back on those. It's also important, from what we've seen, and it's now best practice, but you want to keep your backup systems off of the main production network. If something happens like ransomware, we've seen it spread through an entire network, and anything that is on that can be accessed will be encrypted. That means if it's just a laptop that somebody has from home that's on the network and it can see it and can get access into it, it will encrypt it. So having your backups separate from that production network or from that guest network and everything that is coming in is super critical, because you do not want that getting hit when everything starts rolling through the network. You want to understand the pain points of your backups, such as the recovery time and the recovery point. So what are you willing to be, what is the time that you need to be able to recover by, and what is the point? Is it a day? Is it, a week? some people will have backups, but they do not accept the fact that they need to, if you can't have any data missing for 6 hours, you should be running your backups within 6 hours. If that is not acceptable to your business, that is something that should be discussed. Encrypting your backups is important, such as having like password protection for them, making sure that if somebody was to access something, they couldn't just pull the files off of that and then put it onto a USB drive and extract it and then restore it. You want to have some sort of password protection on that. And then securing physical backup media, if you're using tapes or external hard drives, anything to hold that data for longer retention periods, you want to make sure that it's in a secure place that is locked or coded so that the people accessing it are authorized only.
And then one of the last things we want to talk about is a concept called defense in depth. So we've talked about a couple different areas where things can be compromised, like email, applications, computers, the network itself. At all of those layers, you want some type of security, some kind of defense mechanisms in place so that if one thing gets compromised, like email, then they can't get anywhere else into your environment, like onto your computers or your servers or your network devices and that kind of thing. So good security is done in layers. You obviously want email filtering to help filter out phishing attempts and malicious attachments and those kind of things. One thing to have on the computers and servers is antivirus or a little bit better of a product called EDRs, endpoint detection and response. That goes further than just your typical antivirus, where it will look at the actual behavior of what's happening on the computer. It's not just looking at files and signatures and those kind of things. It's looking at processes and network connections and things that are actually being done on the computer at the time. We've seen instances where EDR products will alert and stop to the fact that someone clicked on a phishing link and went to a phishing website that tricked them into trying to provide credentials. So EDR solutions on endpoints can help drastically with that type of activity and that type of behavior. You obviously want to protect your line of business applications. That's the heart and soul of your company. So if you lose that, you might have downtime for extended weeks. You might not be able to recover if those kind of things get affected. So there's also network security, putting in place restrictions. And one of the things that we have seen recently is called zero trust networking, to where nothing is trusted unless it's explicitly allowed. So someone coming into your office and just plugging in a computer, this would stop that kind of thing. Or it would put them on an environment where they only have access to the internet and nothing internal, that type of thing. One other thing that should be looked at is from an account perspective, like the account you use to log into your computer with, or the account you use to administer servers, that type of thing. A concept called least privilege or specialized accounts, separating out admin functions versus regular functions and having separate accounts for that. So that way, if an account's credentials do get compromised, then that account can't be used necessarily for server administrative functions and that kind of thing. Obviously, you want to look at disaster recovery. So like if the building catches on fire and everything inside that gets wiped out, how would you recover from that? Do you have offsite backups like Josh talked about to be able to go to and be able to start restoring your information that you need? And then one of the last things is cybersecurity insurance. Often nowadays, insurance companies are requiring that, but it's also a preventative measure for your business that if an instance does happen, a cybersecurity instance does happen, that you have something to fall back on to recover monetarily from, depending on how much money you have to spend out to get back up and running and that kind of thing. So yeah, Josh, do you have anything else on that?
Yeah, I do want to say that with disaster recovery, the important thing is out of it also to get it on paper, get a strategy out there, because just sitting in a room and talking with some people and saying that, yeah, we have this plan, but not having it documented anywhere, when everything starts to happen, it will not serve you any good unless you have something that you can fall back on. And then also along the lines of defense in depth, user training is extremely important. Talking to users, no matter what the level, and just explaining what is going on out there and making sure that they're knowledgeable is, at the end of the day, it's the biggest difference I've seen for a lot of people, because you can have every security measure ever, but if somebody is still willing to click on every single thing that shows up or let everybody in the door who knocks on it, it's, at the end of the day, it's that people are still going to get in, things are still going to happen. Having good measures is extremely important, but training is also right up there with everything, that everybody needs to be aware and on the same page of making sure that they're being defensive, because as we've seen just over the last year, every year it gets worse and worse, but just over the last year or two, everything is picking up so much more, and it's not going away anytime soon. It's only going to get worse, and there will be more stuff added to it. So you want to stay on top of this stuff, because there is companies that get compromised, have things happen, lose business reputation, have information lost forever, and they do not recover, and they end up going out of business because of it. So it is an extremely important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, very much so. And one other thing I wanted to talk about at the defense in depth was about physical security. So securing your physical location, your office, the equipment that's in the office, making sure unauthorized people can't just walk up to it and start doing things on it, that type of thing. That's very important as well.
Yeah, we've seen where we've gotten questions before too about physical security and intrusion protection, stuff like that, and just how to go about it. And there are physical penetration testing that can be done, because if you're the owner of your company and you just try to sneak into your building, even if somebody notices you, they're probably going to let you in the building. So having somebody else come in, try to do that from an outside perspective, can provide a lot of information to help you better your security physically and virtually.
Mm-hmm. I think that's all that we have right now. And